Dear listeners, there is a version of fatherhood that looks like the Instagram reel, the camping trips, the matching outfits, the moments that make it look uh, uncomplicated and full of wonder. And then there's the actual version, like the 2 a.m. worry, the question of whether you are doing enough, being enough, or showing up in the right ways, right? So the strange experience of watching yourself become more patient and more terrified at that same time, right? So today's guest, um, I'd say today's guest hosts a podcast about fatherhood from Sydney, and I have a feeling that this conversation is going to be exactly the kind most dads need to hear, and obviously really have. Listeners, welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, where we make space for the honest conversations about what it actually takes to feel well, live fully, and show up for the people who need you. I'm your host, Ravik, and I'm really, really glad that all of you are here today. And I have to say, my guest today is the co host of Papa Lens podcast, a show uh, about fatherhood and the universe, built by the two middle aged dads sharing tales of modern madness and is easygoing, honest, and there for whatever conversation needs to happen. So, I'll not take much of a time, dear listeners. Let's start it. Please welcome our guest, Arky Jones. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Avik. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, Arky, before we go anywhere, I want to start with the name, Papa Lens. I mean, it's very, I mean, it gives you that feeling, right? So, what is the lens that you are talking or you are looking through as a father? Like, what does that framing mean to you? What made you want to build the whole podcast around it?
Well, to be honest, when before my children were born, which was now over 20 years ago, that my life was one of like, what's next, kind of
Mm,
drinking, partying, just doing whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted, without
mm,
much direction. But at the same time, it had more anxiety, it had more the undesirableness, let's just say. And there was something that switched in my head that when the children were born, I no longer wanted any of that. And I wanted something that was, I can't even to this day fully put words to it, but I just knew that they changed my life that moment. And so, but come to the question with Papa Lens
yeah.
is that when we decided that name, it was looking through the lens of our life as our
Mm,
children have grown up and reflecting on that. But also, we do talk about multiple topics that is impactful across the plethora of life,
yeah.
but fundamentally coming back to what is it going to take for the next generation of us to live at least as good, if not better, lives than what we had.
One more thing I want to definitely ask about because when we're talking about this, I think we also should talk about the fatherhood and the mental health. Like fatherhood and mental health are two things that don't often get discussed in the same sentence. Obviously, especially for the men. Uh, so most conversation about the fatherhood focus on the practical side, the role, responsibilities. I mean, very few ask like how a father is actually doing inside all of that, right? So, what has your experience been like, both personally and in the conversation on your show?
Well, it's a bit of a double-edged question in the sense
Mhm.
that generally male mental health isn't talked about as much as it should be. But with particular to fathers, we are seen as the figurehead, the leader of the family,
Yeah.
the provider, and
Mhm.
therefore you need to have an approach to it that is at the very face value is that you are in control, you're in charge. So it's up to you when everything else is going wrong that you need to kind of have that vow to the self that you will do whatever it takes to make sure these children have what it needs to flourish, have a good opportunity. But there's a bit of an old saying, and I make this joke to my wife, is that who's the one that goes to check out the bang in the middle of the night, you know, and it's inevitably me. And I think that where men don't do themselves much justice is that we have been brought up, and it's across cultures of it. This is not any one country. This is across cultures. We've been told men just need to shut up and get on with it. And it's not okay to talk. It's not okay to share. Like there's most of the groups around the toddlers, around the young children, is very mother centric, and
Mm.
men just seem to be kind of you know, a bit of a butt of the jokes, a bit of like you can get on with it. But the thing is that if the father's mind is is growing, if they are fulfilled, if they are feeling personal growth, then that will lead to better outcomes for their children. Because
Mm.
unless you have your own ship in order, which is the only thing you can truly control is the self, you're going to project that onto others. But unfortunately, the idea of challenges that the men go through fatherhood, particularly, I would say things like anxiety, pressure, um, feeling you're not enough, and also the smaller things like the child would maybe run to the mother when they're hurt. And from an outside perspective, other people will often like look to the mother for answers. And even I don't know if guys have noticed, but sometimes when you go to the doctor, even they would generally talk to the mother
Yeah.
over the father. And I think that what you can do is change that at home by actually doing your part within the home and then
Mm.
projecting that outward. So what the children see are two equal partners that are working in synergy to give them the best possible chance to have a life that is something that resembles peace and something that resembles responsibility and something that resembles success.
Yeah, I agree. And the particular loneliness of modern fatherhood, because men in general have fewer spaces to process things out loud. And I have to say, like, fathers have even fewer. So, where do you go? Like, or have you found other dads going to actually walk through the stuff that doesn't fit neatly into the dad role?
Yeah. So look, it's a bit of a difficult one because there are, as you know, with personality, there are many
Yeah.
different types of personalities in the world, and
Mm.
so the answer I'm gonna give is gonna be focused more on on myself as opposed to the people that are on other extremes of the spectrum to me, but
Mm.
I would lean towards introverted that needs quality company. So what I've done over the last, 20 plus years is I've always set aside time to look forward to outside of the family with a small group of friends. And when I've moved countries, so for example, I've lived in a number of countries, I've always set out to, and it takes time, but find a couple of like minded fathers who have children similar age within, you know, 5 or 6 years, give or take, and set aside time for maybe just every 8 weeks, get together, have a barbecue, have a little chat, and then I try to always have someone, that I can call outside the family unit, which would be generally a male friend, and, just have that conversation. Now, friendship, though, it does take work. So, for example, what I'll often bring to friendships is a practical knowledge, like able to repair cars, do, basic plastering, basic, you know,
Mm.
general duties, carpentry. I'm not a tradesperson as such, but it's the kind of those skills that they're the type of people I like to associate with, so I tend to have make my interests in line with them, but also are practical. So, for example, my this is a few years ago now, but one of my 17-year-olds, they bought a car that they bought it on a whim because they didn't know what they were doing. I should have educated them better growing up, but
Okay.
because of those, it arrived home, needed a new radiator, needed a bit of work. The water pump had
Mm.
broken, and just called a couple of people that I knew, and we used that as a bonding experience to repair this car. So it's kind of going out the way. But I would say, Avik, and I don't want to speak for you, but men tend to do things well side by side, such as like having a beer, playing darts, fixing a car,
Mm.
doing repairs. But I wouldn't be the sort of guy that could sit down and just have a coffee and natter about the weather, for want of a better word. So I think the answer to the core answer is find people who are in your framework, who have similar goals to you in life, but also be willing be willing to do it fast. Is if they are not fulfilling you in any way and they're taking more energy than you can give, be willing to walk away as well. And that's been one of my most powerful things. So the friends I have, I'll hold on to, but it's earned. And many people come and go. And that is also part of it, part of the experience. But the true friends, try and hang on to them.
And I definitely want to ask you about the modern madness, like the phrase in your show's description, right? So this is particular madness of being a dad right now. So in 2025 in Australia or anywhere, like what has changed about the experience of fatherhood and compared to what your, I mean, our own dads lived through? And is that change mostly progress, mostly loss, or something more complicated?
Well, look, I won't get political, so I'll stay focused on things that are tangible across the world, okay? So,
Okay.
for example, when my father was younger, his house price to wages was about times 2.5 to 3. In India, they've had the same thing. In Middle East, same thing, slightly different. Japan,
Yeah.
a little bit off, but you get the point globally. What's changed now is that when I grew up, although I bought at a 5-to-1 ratio to income, when I bought my first home, it was about 4.5 to 5 to 1 ratio to buy this first home. The pathway for me from when I was about 13, 14 was quite clear. It was
Yeah.
you work hard, you get a degree, you get a job, you get married, you have children, you get a house. And it was that simple. And that's how it
Yeah.
worked. What's gone wrong, and this is globally, is that
Mm.
they have basically devalued money to a point that inflation has caused the houses to rise. They've also increased competition for less resources. And what that's done is it's caused the father's message to have to change because I can no longer just tell my kids, go out, get a job, get married, and get a house because the game doesn't work that way anymore. And it hurts me. It hurts me deeply. It doesn't because that was the message. So the madness of fatherhood is having to navigate in real time making sure the children have hope, they have desire, they feel this purpose. Because
Yeah.
honestly, the purpose has been taken away, and
Yeah.
it's something that as the head of the house, you have to instill this is meaningful.
Exactly.
Find meaning because the value proposition has changed, but the human experience has not. We are born and then we die, and life what happens in between. And it's up to the father to explain to the kids how they get the most out of that.
Exactly. And very, very, very well explained. It's a social media's role in all of this because fatherhood now happens with a constant comparative backdrop. Uh, I mean, what does that do to a man's sense of whether he's doing it well enough or not? So, what do you have to say?
So what I will say on this is to any men listening, you do not have to play that game. There is only one thing within your locus of control, and it sits right here. It's your heart, and your heart is how you love, it's how you feel, it's how you interact with the world. I will not lie to you. There is pressure out there because the entire system tells you you need things to be complete. You need a new car, you need the latest phone, you need expensive clothes. You do not. What you actually need is to be in control of yourself, to appreciate the small things and teach your children to appreciate the small things. Take them for a walk in a clean area, let them feel the grass. Take them out at night on a cloudless night and look at the stars and be in awe. Nature, once you've taken care of the fundamentals, I'm not saying if you can't eat, do you know what I mean? This is doesn't you've got to survive. But once survival's taken care of, please understand that it doesn't have to be a competition, but you have been taught almost from birth that is a scarcity mindset, but you don't need to think that way. And if you can just change one thing, this is what I would recommend.
Mm.
Buy a safe car for cash and never ever again buy anything with money that you do not have. So never again. And from there, bring it back to ask yourself every day, what do I need versus what do I want? And you will find you need very little other than respect, dignity, and your children to give you the purpose to keep getting up and keep moving forward. But the truth is, if you are thinking that way, you need to ask yourself, am I competing with them or am I competing with my own inadequacies? And once you realize you're actually only competing with yourself, you can actually start to change things and that whole mind shift will shift. It will take a big step and you will start realizing that the only thing that truly matters is you and your family and friends that mean something, that can add value to your life.
Very true. Very true. And okay, and one more thing is very important: raising the children in this world, right? What is the thing you most want your children to take from how you showed up as a father? Not the achievements or the activities, but something deeper about who you were in the relationship with them, and what does good fathering look like for you?
Okay, so firstly, I wanted them to know from a young age that I am not their friend. Okay. I will protect them. I will love them. I will lay my life down for them, but we're not buddies. I am here as a guide and I will guide you the best I can so that you can lead a life that is as fulfilled as possible. And in that, what that means is that I it doesn't mean we can't be friends, we can't be friendly, but I'm not their friend. I am the figure of authority. I am the figure of I'm also the major benefactor, and just a little joke here, Avik, but they say communism doesn't work, but in a father's home, it does work because the father goes and does all the work and everybody else, you know, gets the food and the shelter. But joking aside, look, fathers are in a situation where you need to set your children up for the big world. And let me tell you this, the world is indifferent to you and to your children. And it doesn't mean you don't need to instill hope or purpose, because of course you do. But that purpose, you have to make sure that they know it is from them and for them. Because if you allow it, the world will creep in. It will tell them what to think, what to feel. It will tell them ways to think. Now, I've always had this thing with my children where if I do something that they perceive is wrong, I actually allow them to voice it in a safe area. And then the other thing that we do is if if they tell the truth and they've done something wrong, the consequence is only a conversation. But if they lie and then subsequently comes out that what's occurred was was the truth and they've lied about it, then they have a much bigger problem. So what I've tried to instill to the children is that life is absolutely beautiful. It is there for the taking. You have a soul and you are made of the same energy that created this universe in the first place. Infinite potential. You are infinite potential embodied, and children represent that better than anyone. But also, there are predators out there, and there are things out there that we wish they weren't. And so when you go to the world, by the time when I say I release you, by the time you no longer need me, I want to be satisfied. I've done all I can to prepare you to face the world.
That's interesting. Really interesting. And today, if you have to give one advice, special advice to the dads, what that will be?
The my special advice to you guys would be: listen, fellas, life isn't fair. No one's coming to save you. Okay, it is you against the world. But in that there is hope because you are capable. You can drive real change. And
Yeah.
all I would say is look at yourself, reflect on the things you do well and do more of them, and look at the things that could be better. Look if you get a bit angry too quickly. Look if you're a bit snappy, and just make one small step just once. And that will give you a framework to then take the next step and the next step. And if every day you improve yourself by just 1% within 100 days, you're a different
Mm,
person.
true. Very, very true. Yeah. And it's a great advice, I would say. And also for the listeners, if someone wants to connect with you, want to have a discussion, or also want to get involved, know more about your podcast, which will be the great medium to connect.
Oh, no, thank you. So, Avik, so of course, Papa Lens podcast is there, but my primary focus is actually on personality and the self. So
Yeah.
if you guys check out personalitypeak.com, this is a platform that I have built from the ground up that gives as detailed insights as I believe are possible on across 6 dimensions into the self. But what that does, that just gives you a map. It gives you some insight. From there, you can walk with us or you can walk alone, just take the information and do nothing else. Or we have lots of workbooks and in basically books on how to actually follow different ways of being. So we call it the third way, and that covers stoicism, and it covers some of our secret, which you'll have to read, methods on how you can turn a problem into a solution. But personalitypeak.com, all the socials are on the bottom. Check it out. Messages via there if need be. And I appreciate you for having me on, Avik. It was a great conversation.
Amazing. That's really, really great. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links and the details into the show notes for your easy reference. And also, like I'd say, I mean, that's a wrap for today's episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. And I'd say if this conversation gave you something to sit with about fatherhood, about what you are carrying, about the conversations that you have been meaning to have, then please let that become something real today. And as I said, Arky's podcast and all his details will be there in the show notes. And please go find Papa Lens. And it's the kind of show that makes you feel less alone in the madness. So, with this hope, this is your host, Arik, and this is Healthy Man in Life. My message is show up, ask the questions, have the conversations, and take care of yourselves. See you next time. Thank you so much.